Okay, everybody. My name is Jackie Orr, and I'm the State CSBG Assistance Director here at NASCSP. It's nice to have such a big group with us this afternoon. Before we get started with our webinar, though, what I'd like to do is go over some housekeeping notes with all of you. Just want to let you know that you are all muted because we do have such a large group. If you have a question that you would like to ask, and we want this to be as interactive as possible, so please ask questions. So do one of two things. You can raise your hand and we'll unmute you, or you have a little hand icon that you can, otherwise if you raise your hand, we actually won't be able to see you. Or if you can do something else, you can also send a question through the chat window, and you can send it to all participants, because if you send it to all participants this way, we'll all be able to see it and be able to make sure that your question can get answered. We have an hour and a half today, which is good because we have lots of information that we're going to share with you. And thanks for moving the slide along. Here are the presenters for the webinar today. As you can see, we also have Lauren Cook, who's our CSBG team lead on the webinar, and Katie Kajowski, who's a consultant with NASCSP, and we also have Barbara Mooney, who's also a consultant with us. So all of us are going to be doing pieces of the presentation today. So let's go to the agenda and let's see what we're going to be talking about. And to talk about the CSBG IS submission, along with the data cleaning process. So we'll go through with you the steps of that. We're going to be talking about how to prepare to submit the CSBG IS survey. And then we're going to end with what is new this year. So we will be touching upon the CSBG annual report, as well as touching upon the Module 1 submission. But the large part of today is really going to be talking about the IS submission and the data cleaning process. We will have a webinar later or next week, which we'll talk about later in this webinar, we will be delving deeper into the Module 1 submission in OLDC. So there'll be more time to talk about that next week. So with that, I am going to be turning it over to Katie Kajowski, who's going to be getting us started with the submission of the IS survey.
Thank you, Jackie. Sorry, it took me a minute to get unmuted. Good afternoon, everybody. We are going to be discussing the CSBG IS survey submission and data cleaning process. This is going to just be an overview of how we are collecting data this year. There are some changes, and there are some pieces of the IS report that we will be highlighting. First, this is the CSBG IS data submission process. The Duty Action Agency submits data to the state. This verifies and compiles all the CIA's data and submits it to NASCSP by March 31st. Then we at NASCSP analyze that data, compile any outstanding questions that we have, and put that into data cleaning memo, which we send to the state. We have state time to address the questions, go back to their entities, verify the data essentially. And then the state provides us, NASCSP, back with a corrected database and updated cleaning memo. We review all of that, ensure everything's been corrected and verified, and then finalize the IS data for that year. Of the IS report are A through G, and then the NPIs. All these are required as the annual report for community action agencies receiving CSBG funding. This year, the states will only report on Section B, only the eligible entity list, Section D, Section E, Section F, and G, and the NPIs. That data will be collected in the IS database as it has been. Things A and C do not need to be completed in the IS database. Parts of that information will be completed in Module 1 of the CSBG Annual Report, which we will talk about later. Right now, we're just going to be talking about just sections that will be reported in the IS report. One moment, it looks like we have some questions. Folks not able to see the slides? So it looks like some folks are having some technical difficulties with the ability to see the slides.
And yeah, I think we addressed that. I think someone can get through that.
Okay, so this is resolved.
Look like it, yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, moving along. So every state should have received an access database. If you have not, please contact NASCSP as soon as possible and we will get you that database. When you open up your database, every state will see the state of Maryland. This is correct. This is just by design for this access database. You enable content across the yellow bar on your screen, then your state information will populate. CSBG survey, access database IS survey. This is your main home page, basically. Anytime you click main page, this is where you'll be taken. After you open up your database, the first thing you need to do is enter the state contact information. You can't move throughout the database until the state contact information piece has been entered. So also along the same lines, you can't change the state contact information. So if you're going along, you have to change your state contact information, please contact NASCSP. Other little things to note about the access database is to have only one person at a time in the database. And by access design, this is not something that NASCSP has put into place. Moving along. The TNTA survey is a part of the CSBG IS that is required to be completed. Two things to note. Questions 1 through 9 is asking about TNTA for eligible entities, while questions 9 through 15 is asking about TNTA for states. So they're tentative questions, but for different populations. Section A through C and D. So A and C will not be reported in the CSBG IS survey. Again, similar types of information will be collected in Module 1 of the new annual report. C does not need to be completed. However, we are asking that the CSBG eligible entity list in Section B is completed. And we are asking this for two reasons. One, if there are any changes to any eligible entities, it automatically populates for your NPIs. And it's also a backup for creating a master eligible entity list moving forward. Section D will need to be completed in the IS survey. We understand that there is some overlap of Section D questions in Module 1, but we are asking that Section D be completed in full in the IS database. Please note there is a glitch in Section D, so enter information and move forward to the next screen, you will lose your Section D information. So we have fixed many states' databases. If you have not had your database fixed and like it fixed, please send it back to us at NASCSP and we'll make that correction. Otherwise, you are also welcome to submit Section D using the Excel document found on the NASCSP website. So, screenshot of Section D. You can see there's a lot of space here to enter information. If you exceed the space limits of this particular form, you're welcome to submit Section D in the Excel document as well. Section D is a critical section of this report. Stories are essential communication tools for helping public partners and potential funders understand how CSBG works. It really This should take away an image of competent, positive approaches to tough community and social problems. S&G stories for us are extremely useful. It's what we go and grab to when we need to tell a story about what CSBG does in every community. It's the stuff that we go through to create our annual report. So really appreciate all of your thoughtful stories in Section D. Through G. Section E, this is CSBG Expenditures by service category. In this section, eligible entities are reporting on what they actually spent during the reporting time period. Note down on Table 2 that Table 2 is actually a subset of Table 1. As you see, this is a blue screen. The blue screens throughout the Access database are where you're actually entering data. We'll get in a minute about comparisons, but the comparisons are actually the green screens. If specific questions about what is admin and what is not, I want to revisit IM 37, which discusses the allowability of direct and admin costs, stating direct program costs incurred for the service delivery and management components within a particular program or project. So your direct program costs would be reported in Table 1, whereas administrative costs, which are the central executive functions that do not directly support a specific project or service, are reported down right below the total line from Table 1. Table 1 is your program costs, then those what was used for administration, and then Table 2, youth and seniors, is your subset of Table 1. CSB funding by demographic category. So this is describing the youth and the senior section of Table 2. Youth is defined as individuals aged 12 to 18, and senior defined as individuals ages 55 and up. That's just for the purposes of reporting CSBG data. And F is the CSBG network resources. This is where we are asking entities to report the total agency budgets during that reporting period. These are allocated amounts and not expended. Again, Section E is our expended amounts, and Section F is what was allocated. Agencies should report on everything under their CSBG umbrella, as should every agency as well. Ask for the allocated amount in Section F so that we can get a picture of all the federal, state, local, and private funding resources available within the network for a given report period. This also allows us to get an accurate number of funds that CSBG leveraged, because we're at that point then comparing apples to apples. Figuring this out, there are gray fields in Section F, and those are auto-populating, auto-calculating. All Section F, if you're entering anything into the other resources, please provide a CFDA number. In many cases, if you don't have a CFDA number, you will have a highlight in that particular cell. Section or the client demographics. In this section, we're asking you to report the total unduplicated count of program participant demographics for the entire agency and not just CSBG funded programs. Also understand in Section G that you may have programs that don't collect every data point on that participant, and that is okay. An example of that is a food program where you may only collect the very limited demographic information on folks that you're surveying. The participants, though, should still be included in at least number 4 and number 6 in Section G, where they're asking for the total unduplicated number of persons for whom no characteristics were obtained. So again, if you have those programs that are just doing head counts, that's where you can report the head counts. There's going to be a lot of data checks that we go through as we're data cleaning, and in particular with Section G characteristics. For example, things like no part of the NPIs should exceed the number in your section D. On to section G, demographics. Please note that question 10 is the education levels of adults 24 years old and older. This is the only question in section G that limits, that has specifics about age limits. Just to note as you're seeing and entering data. Note is in 14, the form does not collect data on food stamps, Medicaid, LIHEAP, or other in-kind benefits. So I'm not asking for those to be included in this section. Also note that even though that CSBG eligibility maximum is 125% FPL, we understand that there are programs operated by eligible entities that have higher income thresholds, so we do report that here. How in this particular slide the total is red. Second, highlight certain cells red when they exceed the total number of participants, or in this case, the total number of families reported. We do see those highlights. We ask that you provide a comment. Update the data. You've collected and entered your sections E through E. Now what do you do? So ask that you check to ensure that all data is entered correctly and accurately. Built-in comparison tools into the IS database that allow you to review 2016 data to 2015 data. If there are any major differences, please provide a comment in the comments box. We also have data cleaning functionality built into the database that we will talk about later. Another thing you can do is review section G against your census poverty data. For example, if it appears that you're serving 20% of your total population in poverty, there may be some data inaccuracies within section G. In each section of the IS database, we have various ways to look at data. So anytime you see this Compare to 2015 button, you can click that and it automatically compares 2016 data to your 2015 data. Those will be on the green screen. Green screens are in your comparison screens. And you cannot enter data in that section. You have to go back out if you need to make any updates. This example of what the comparison screen looks like. See, there's a lot of data that we're looking at to do these comparisons. Rule of thumb is we ask states to provide comment on 100 changes 100% from year to year, but also know that if those changes happen to be small, for example, you served 10 people last year and this year you served 20, there's probably not a need to provide comment because it's only the difference of 10, even though it is of 100%. We'll talk more about data cleaning later, but right now we're going to go through the national performance indicators, and I will turn it over to Barbara.
We'll look at the national performance indicators in the current reporting IS system. Keep in mind, these are the current national performance indicators. And we're going to talk about each one very briefly because these are areas that you may be familiar with. Next slide, Katie. One of the most important things to remember that when you're reporting on data, national performance indicators, this is not just about CSBG funded activities. These are about the outcomes and the indicators from all of the agency's activities. So that's the key matter of emphasis. NPI 1.1 is in the domain of employment, and it asks for information about the number and percent of low-income participants who get jobs or become self-employed. and you'll see the subsections there on the area on the screen. You'll see that there are some flags over to the right in the red, and those are the things that Katie just mentioned where there are differences. Employment, we have employment support, number of low-income participants. Form barriers have been eliminated. And, this covers a number of supports that allow families to keep the wage earner in a situation where they can continue their employment. You notice that there's a cross-reference on this slide to Goal 6, Area 6.2 and 6.4, where there are similar kinds of reports are about individuals that are not in the employment arena. Okay. The importance of the employment services is to make sure that individuals can enhance their economic position and they can utilize the resources, and that is what you're seeing on this slide. Also references other NPIs that we just looked at about support, Goal 6, and then one that's a community level goal that we'll talk about in a minute. I mentioned about the fact that this is a family and individual level goal here, and now we've moved to 2.1, which is a community level goal. It's about community improvement and revitalization. And this 2.1, you're looking at the thing that your agency has done, increased or safeguarded opportunities or services that are community-based. So there are, again, the cross-references to the employment and employment supports, and also to services in 6.4. Next. Resources that you will be reporting on is an increase in quality of life and assets of the low-income neighborhoods that have been improved. Some additional community level outcomes that you'll be reporting on in 2.2. With the reference here to 3.1 and 3.2 as well. The primary functions of the Community Action Network is community engagement, and so in 2.3, looking at community members working with the Community Action Agency to improve conditions in the community. We want you to be sure to note that everyone has volunteer hours because they all have a board. Board members are considered to be volunteers, and so no one should not complete this slot. Everyone should have numbers to put into this one 2.3. Okay. Similar report is on maximum feasible participation. You'll see this is related to the number of volunteer hours donated by low-income individuals. This is only low-income individuals in this section, and you will see the volunteer hours in the previous section, which is where the cross-reference is here. 2.3 was for all volunteers. Okay. In 3.2, we're looking at the number of low-income people that are mobilized to support other kinds of activities, and this is also cross-referenced with support services for employment, utilization services, the volunteer hours, and also services in Goal 6. Okay. Goal 4 now moves to agency level outcomes, where we are looking at expanding partnerships. Now, we know that agencies create partnerships both to expand their own resources, but also to expand resources in the community so that, that families and the community achieve outcomes. So in this section, you're talking about the number of partnerships, the number of organizations that are in each of these different areas, A to N, the AM rather, that are nonprofits, faith-based, local government, and so on. This is a way for us to show the support for the agency by other partners in the community. Okay, next. Agency level set of indicators are here in 5.1, where we're talking about some indicators of agency capacity, and these are the capital resources available to community action, and it talks about individuals who have certain kinds of certifications, who can trainings and meetings, and who are therefore building their capacity through the development activities provided by the agency. And then finally, this is goal 6 of the 6 national goals that are referenced by the national performance indicators. And this one is about vulnerable populations, the number of individuals that were able to maintain an independent living situation. And you'll see that this is about seniors and individuals with disabilities. And you're asked to identify them by age. Okay, and there's an arrow pointing there, and if someone else could see that better, I'm not sure what that's supposed to be. Can you help me out, Lauren or Katie? We can come back to that.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yes, it's to identify, that this total now auto-populates. It used to not in older versions of the database, number one. And number two, the other note on this section is 6.1A or 6.1B should never be larger than the senior citizens you've reported in Section G or the persons with a disability reported in Section G. That was the arrow.
Okay, thank you. So the new feature of this of the Access database that it auto-calculates for you. And you'll at the bottom the cross-reference there that Katie was referring to that includes the demographics. Katie's going to talk in a minute about some of the things the tools that help you with this analysis. So she'll come back to that in just a minute. And then on to 6.2, emergency assistance. This is one that's well utilized by our network, and there'll be some big changes in this going forward. But for now, we're looking at the number of individuals, families, from the families that were served who achieved stability as a result of their getting services, emergency food, housing, and so on. So this is also cross-referenced by the support services for the employed in 1.4 or 1.2, and in one of the ones that's coming up here in just a minute in 6.4. Child and family development is highlighted in this section. When we're talking about vulnerable populations in Goal 6, we want to make sure that we're thinking about youth and children, and then we're thinking about parents, other adults who are not able to be employed, and so have some vulnerability. And so in this section, we're talking about the number of individuals who achieved outcomes that have to do with child and family development. Okay, next one is about family supports. This is a duplicate of the information in 1.2. This is about individuals who are not able to work, as we just spoke about, seniors or individuals with disabilities or caregivers who are unable to work. So this is information specifically about that population. Okay. And then the last is a service count. It's the number of food boxes or pounds of foods, clothing, rides, on our calls, information, referral calls. And so this is a piece that will get carried over in a different way to the annual report, but it's very important for us to know the services that are provided to individuals and families that have low income. I think that's any question about the national performance indicators or any of the that Katie mentioned earlier in the slides. Lauren, Jackie, have you seen any coming in?
Like there's one. I heard we are no longer concerned about 20% over under this year. They were looking at 100%. The 20% still throw a red flag. You are correct. We are not concerned about a 20% plus or minus change. And the 20% will not throw a red flag in the database.
Okay, thank you for that. That's great. Any others, or does anyone have want to put their hand up and ask a question? Okay, turn this back over to Katie.
Thank you, Barbara. As I mentioned earlier, there are many tools in Access database that are built in for use to help make data cleaning easier. What I can tell you is that NASCSP staff primarily uses the data diagnostic tools for all data cleaning. So you're interested in not receiving a data cleaning memo if everything's addressed that shows up in those data diagnostic tools, then you likely will not have a data cleaning memo, or it'll be very, very minimal. At any rate, you could see the FY16 comparison tool here, data diagnostic tool, view print reports, and resources and instructions. If you looked at some of these, please do. Let me move on. So data diagnostics. This is a screenshot of the various data diagnostics. Again, this is exactly what NASCSP uses for data cleaning. You can view the data diagnostics by agency. You can open up all reports. These are built to flag the various issues, data anomalies that exist throughout this report. Sections E through G, general issues, we're looking at year-to-year variances. We're looking at if any one NPI is greater than items in section G. And we're basically looking for the major changes, the big changes of them all. Those are the ones that we are going to be flagging. NPI targeting and other issues, that is going to identify any parts of the report where targeting is outside the 80 to 120% range. We understand that it be inaccurate data. It is just a threshold that we've identified that's reasonable to ask the question of what happened that changed. If you plan for 50 people and 150 people obtain the outcome, what happened that 100 more people obtained the outcome than were planned? Looking for things such as the entity received additional funding, or they didn't receive the grant that they thought they would, which is why fewer people than anticipated obtained the outcome. So think along those lines. Again, when we're looking at this, we are dedicated this year to looking at the numbers. So if you plan for 10 people and only 7 obtain the outcome, that would throw a flag, but we're not going to ask you what happened to those 3 people. Looking at the NPI year-to-year variance issues, again, that's identifying the large changes. You said, or last year, 100 people obtained the outcome, and this year, 1,000 people. Well, we're going to ask what happened if we don't see a comment. Sometimes you may even provide a comment, and we're going to ask a follow-up question because maybe it's unclear or some other reason. As you put comments into the database, it is extremely helpful to us if you're identifying from where the comment is coming. So, for example, in PI 1.1, when you provide a comment in that box, it's very helpful if you identify that it's NPI 1.1b that you're providing the comment on. Because sometimes there is only one thing, and it's really hard for us to figure out exactly to which NPI is being commented. That's the data diagnostic tools. They're for you as a tool as you are data cleaning within your state. Additional action tools. Yes.
This is Becky. So going back to the targeting, someone asked a question. So only if it is 100% over target do we have to explain? Question mark.
Great question. So the targeting is different than the year-to-year variances. For targeting, we're looking at what you plan fall within a specific range. 80% of what I planned obtained it, or over 120% of what I planned obtained that outcome. That helps clear it up. It's just the difference between what happened and what you planned. That's what we're looking at on that one. Versus the variance is the difference of what happened last year to what happened this year. If that's clear, please put in a follow-up question, because I'm sure that that is clear. Okay, the additional tools and reports. Within this menu, there are state aggregate data reports that are summing up each section. There's agency-specific data reports. There's demographic breakouts and comparisons. This is where you can find your state fact sheet. We highlights, the agency data highlights. You can print reports for all agencies. You can print reports for the state. There's just a wealth of different ways of looking at the data in this particular menu. If you haven't gone through this, please, do you have particular questions or looking for a way to look at data and can't figure out exactly where in this database it's located, give us a call and we are happy to help you find it. So it's a process.
This is Jackie. Just before we move on, the person needs some more clarification on the question about targeting. So the follow-up question is, when do we have to explain target variance?
When your outcome is there, can you help me explain this more clearly?
Okay, say the question again.
About targeting variance to 80 to 100% when the planned outcome is only percent of what they planned or over 120%. So
the performance management directions from GEPRA tell us that we have to, from Government Performance and Results Act, tell us that agencies, that anyone that receives federal funding has to be able to show their targets for performance and how well they target. So in this calculation, we want people to become closer and closer to their ability to target. So if they say they're going to serve 100 people and serve 150 people, or that 100 people are going to achieve an outcome and 150 achieve that outcome, that's over 120%. They would provide us with some information why that happened. And it could be a simple explanation like we got additional funding or we're able to change the program in some way. So it doesn't have to be, it's not a dangerous thing. It's just we want to know why, and we want them to learn from that so that they can increase their ability to target. Did I get at the answer? Do we need to know why it's 80 to 120 and not something else?
I think that was helpful, Barbara. For the folks on the phone, if you have additional questions about that, please do put them in the chat. Do you happen to know why we chose 80 to 120? That is a good question.
Okay. So initially, when the targeting started, we started with 70% to 130, and we gave a larger range. But we are trying to get closer and closer, and we moved it to 80 to 120, and then the goal was to move it even closer. But we haven't adjusted this percent in many years, and so it's remained at 80 to 120, with the idea that plus or minus 20% variance is anything could cause that, but beyond that, there must be some explanation.
Well, for those on the phone, if you need any follow-up on that, just put it in the chat, and we're happy to talk a little bit more about it. This is the process for this year. On the NASCSP website, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen highlighted, this is where you can find the submission form. It's underneath CSBG CGIS survey, and then the CGIS 2016 submission form. From this form, you can upload your Access database, any additional documents you may have. For example, if you choose to submit Section D in the Excel, you would upload that here. If you have, we have some states that submit data cleaning memos Word format, and that's great, and you can upload all of that from this form. On this form, there's a question that's really important. It's how you wish to receive your data cleaning memo. We understand limitations exist throughout states in terms of technology and ability to access boxes and e-size limits. So we have the ability to email the database back to you with our data cleaning memo. We can put it in Dropbox or any other form that within the systems that you're operating in. So you have the IS database and any associated forms. For the states who are using the smart forms, we are asking that you upload all of the agency's smart forms to this page. We are asking this because if there's any data anomalies in the database, we can go back to what was entered on the form as a check without having to make another touch to the state. Let us know if you would like to receive your data cleaning memo. And if you submit your IS database, you'll receive confirmation from NASCSP that the information was received. And the moment we get your database, NASCSP is going to start our data cleaning process. New this year, we've identified data contacts for NASCSP region. I think that's in another slide or two. So your data contact for your region will receive your database, begin the cleaning process. And again, as a reminder, our cleaning process is going through the diagnostic tools to identify anything outstanding or that we have to ask a question on. Oftentimes, it's not that the data is incorrect, just that it's different from year to year, and or may just be an anomaly. We do ask these questions to ensure that we have the most accurate data, and that when we submit our reports to Congress and complete the report, that data has been reviewed and verified. Now this year, we'll have all data finalized by the end of May. So we're going to be very busy for the month of April as we are data cleaning your databases. These are the NASCSP data contacts by region. This is located on the NASCSP website. I believe we're sending this out in the digest as well. Additional resources exist on the NASCSP website. That same tab where the submission form is, you can find PDF and Excel versions of the IS form, the current instruction manuals, lexicon, tips, FAQs. This webinar recording will be posted there. And then we have various other tools and resources, storytelling guide, performance targeting manual, needs assessment manual, various resources available for you. Any questions?
Okay, I'm going to go back to that question when we were talking about the targets and the variance, and the person responded and said that what you and Barbara talked about was clear, but they said you also want an answer just for variance from year to year, even if there's not a target.
Correct. We look at data from year to year to ensure that that it is correct and accurate. So primarily 100% changes is what we're looking for, assuming that they're reasonable. Why do we do that? To ensure accuracy primarily. Through the data cleaning process, there's many times we contact a state and say, oh, hey, you reported $50,000 last year, but nothing this year. And then they say, oh, shoot, you're right. I accidentally left that off, or I put that in the wrong category under something else. So it's a way that we're ensuring this data has been reviewed. We submit a report to Congress that it is the most accurate and correct picture that we have of what's happening in the network.
And I see that question says something about that it could be very time consuming. And back to what I said earlier, we don't need a big long story, but sometimes there's just an error as Katie described, and then that's an easy fix. Or sometimes there's something that's happened, a fund loss or gain can can influence this report, and so funding that that's not CSBG funding. I mean, so there's lots of small things that can happen. So just a brief look at that to make sure that the information is as accurate as possible, and we see what changes are happening and why they're happening.
And to your point, the information on what happened is really important as we tell this story, that as a nation, agencies are gaining or losing certain fund streams. It's really critical to the overall story that we are sharing. All right, if there's no additional questions at this point, we'll move right along, and I'll get over to Lauren. And Congress get the data. They received the data, step in, Lauren, Jackie, if I'm correct, ever by August.
So it's at the end of July. We provide the congressional report. So we'll keep moving forward, and we're going to go forward to what can expect anew this year. I think we had a great overview from Katie and Barbara about what we reported in the CSBG IS survey. For many of you, that was possibly a refresher. For some of you, there was probably new information in that presentation, but now we want to talk about what the changes are that we can expect this year. Hopefully everyone has heard by now that the CSBG annual report was cleared by the Office of Management and Budget. We heard that clearance on January 12, 2017. So this OMB clearance, it means that the annual report is cleared for a period of 3 years. So this clearance will last through January 31st of 2020. At that point, we'll have the opportunity to make some updates to the annual report and then go through another comment process to have it be cleared for another period of 3 years. Then in 152 that was released by OCS, it provides a lot of guidance and detail on the implementation process of the annual report. So if you haven't read IM 152, I encourage you to take a look at that. You can find it on the OCS website, or of course you can find it on the NASCSP website. So again, many of you have probably heard or read that the implementation of the annual report will not happen all at once. It will start in the first phase, focusing on Module 1 on state administration. So Module 1 will be reported for fiscal year 16 and fiscal year 17. The first submission being March 31st, 2017. And then in the second phase, we'll get reporting all 4 modules of the annual report. So that will not happen until fiscal year 18, with the due date of March 31st, 2018. So this part might look a little familiar to anyone who's been on one of our regional calls in the past few months. We wanted to kind of take those 2 phases and the implementation timeline and see what this really means for states based on their state reporting period. So first, this first chart is for states reporting on July 1st through June 1st timeline. In the first row there, we look at fiscal year 16, which is what we're currently reporting on. Of course, you're reporting Module 1 in OLDC, that's the online data collection system, March 31st. And then those sections that Katie reviewed earlier will be reported in the CSBG IS survey. For fiscal year 17, again, only Module 1 is reported into OLDC, and the other sections will be reported in the CSBG IS. Look at fiscal year 18, this is the first time during this reporting period that local agencies will be collecting data for modules 2, 3, and 4. July through June states will be the first ones to start this data collection, starting July 1st, 2017. And then for the March 31st, 2019 due date, all modules 1 through 4, we submitted through OLDC. I just want to make sure everyone is clear that at this point, the annual report will fully replace the CSBG IS. So you'll no longer be reporting in IS and only be reporting in the annual report. That there's going to be there's a great need for TNTA for the July to June states. This webinar is really the first in a series that we'll be holding as we implement Module 1 and all the other modules. So please know that there will be more coming. It highlights the reporting periods for the October through September states. This states follow the federal fiscal year. You'll see that it aligns well with Module 1. The reporting is the same for all of due dates, March 31st, 2017, 2018, and 2019. But these October through September 30th dates will start the data collection for modules 2 through 4 for the first time, October 1st, 2017. And the same dates displayed for the January through December. Start in January 1st, 2018 for the submission of modules 2 through 4 on March 31st, 2019. So there's a lot that will be involved in implementing the annual report, thinking about changes to data systems, getting the instructions manuals for all of the modules, so knowing that we'll be working on implementing the annual report and then kind of monitoring the implementation, providing TNTA, and looking for adjustments that may need to be made within the annual report. We've convened a data task force. Many of you on the webinar today may have applied to join the data task force. We had an excellent response rate with over 100 applications to join the task force, so we were very excited to see how many people across the network, really all levels and across all regions of the country, who wanted to be a part of this. So we've spent a lot of time reviewing every single one of those applications, seeing your responses. So we will be sending out notifications very soon, and we're really excited to get started with the group. Even those who weren't accepted into the task force specifically, we're going to be looking at ways that we can still imbue in the process and make some time and space to help us as we move forward in implementing. So to clarify, for March 31st, 2017, Module 1, State Administration, is the only module that will be reported out of the annual report that was just cleared, and be reported into the online data collection system. The CSBG IS survey, you'll be updating the eligible entity list in Section B only. You'll provide answers in Section B and then respond to the TNTA survey, Sections E through G, and the NPIs. And of course, this is in the Access database. Anyone who hasn't taken a look at Module 1 yet, I encourage you to go to our website. You can download the PDF version of the annual report to review all that's included in Module 1. We also have a Word document available on our website that you could review to start preparing some of your responses. But Module 1 on State Administration aligns with Sections A through D of CSBG IS, and also aligns with the state plan. You'll see once OLDC is open that many of your responses will be auto-populated from your state plan into the corresponding questions in Module 1. We want to make sure we emphasize that all of the information in Module 1 is based off the federal fiscal year. And you'll see that's likely because the information is auto-populated from the state plan. Module 1 focuses on things like state administration of CSBG funding, administration of discretionary funds, training and technical assistance. There are also there's a new section on organizational standards for eligible entities, monitoring, state languages. There's a section on Roma. We have an annotated version of the annual report that you could review that shows you kind of the crosswalk between the IS and the state plan. So I encourage everyone to take a look at that. As part of our TNTA and rollout, we've been working with OCS to test Module 1 in OLDC, and we've also been working with a small group of states who have served as our beta testers of Module 1 in OLDC. So they've been extremely helpful in not only testing the system to ensure that fields are working, but also in highlighting some of the sections of Module 1 that really need more clarification or better instructions to make it easier process once they're submitting their responses. So OCS and NASCSP are working very hard to make sure that it is up and running in OLDC. We expect that it will be available and open later this month, and we will be planning to hold a webinar once up to kind of demo how you would enter it into OLDC. So all of the sections that are included in Module 1, these are all included in OLDC. Again, about the tools and resources, the ones that we have are currently up on our website that you can go download right now is our Module 1 in a Word document so that you can start kind of preparing your responses. We also have that the level crosswalk that shows you how the sections between the CSBG IS and the annual report align, and then we have the annotated version of the annual report that gets much more detailed and goes kind of item by item. In our coming soon section, we're working on a Module 1 one-pager. You'll have the highlights about Module 1 readily available, and we're also working to finalize an instructions manual on Module 1. That's something that our beta testers reviewed and provided feedback on so that we could modify that as needed. Before, this is really just the start of the webinars on Module 1. We ask that you save the date for the next webinar, which will be February 23rd, 3:30 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The webinar will really dive in more into the content sections throughout Module 1. Then we'll have an additional webinar that will go over how to enter this into OLDC. So we have a couple questions that have come in through the chat. Is there anyone else who has a question about Module 1? Them right now. There's some questions about what fiscal year you're reporting within Module 1 is based off of the federal fiscal year. So for this, then it'll be fiscal year 16. And some of the additional webinars, we're going to go by section on how that will impact your reporting. So we'll be looking at the reporting on state use of funds, the ASI, organizational standards, how this will kind of overlap for the different state reporting periods. For modules 2 through 4, those are based off of the state reporting period and not the federal fiscal year. So when you look at the charts that we had up earlier, those really correspond to reporting on modules 2 through 4. I do have a WAF regional call at the same time that day. The webinars will all be recorded and available on our website following the webinar. If you are not able to attend, we will get available to you after. Other questions? Okay, think of them, go ahead and type them into the chat or raise your hand. Just as another reminder, data submission to NASCSP is required March 31st. Hopefully you saw our constant contact done out yesterday, encouraging everyone to submit them as soon as possible. We're really making an effort this year because we know everyone has so much going on to clean your CSBG IS data as quickly as possible. So the sooner you can send it in to us, the sooner we can get you your cleaning memo and get that process moving. We have a question about when Module 1 is available or will be available. It's available in PDF and Word formats on our website right now. It will be available in OLDC in the next couple weeks, and we'll let you know as soon as possible of that launch date. I'll hold a webinar to demo the site once it's launched. There will be any changes to Module 1 before it's in OLDC. The documents that are up on our website are the ones that will be or the same questions that will be in OLDC. We will have the instructions manual available once the site is launched, so that it'll give some better detail on how to answer many of the questions in the module. Okay, thinking of other questions. Want to make sure everyone knows that we've posted the 2016 annual report that is published by NASCSP every year. The 2016 annual report has data fiscal year 15. So we have full annual report available with all the appendix items. We have the national CSBG highlights available, and then we also have the state highlights. So encourage anyone who has not visited the site yet to access those, to go ahead and take a look at some of that, get information from your state. All right, that brings us to the end of the presentation today. If there are any additional questions, we can go over those. Otherwise, we can wrap up a bit early.
Like someone might have their hand up.
Okay. Fine. Looks like they took it down.
Okay.
Oh, so I'm going to unmute you. Hold on one second.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. The question I have is, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, we had to get a letter to you saying that we submitted our information. Is that still required? That's purposes because they needed to know that we actually submitted our survey.
For the state plan, is that the letter?
I'm getting confused now. You know, so many things. Is it the state plan? I don't know.
Well, you can sign a letter giving us permission to send your IS database to OCS, comply with the state plan. So you would be able to do that, and we could send the in the IS to them.
Okay. All right.
and template for states to use.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember seeing that before.
Yeah.
Seeing it,
So we can share that with you.
All right, thank you.
We have a couple other questions. Jean, I'm going to unmute you now.
All right, hear me?
Yes.
I sent it through the chat, but I didn't know if you saw it or not. For submitting Module 1 through OLDC, will it need to be certified, submitted by the agency's authorized official like the state plan? Do we yet? Because I know it will impact our process here to get it submitted. I don't know what it would do for other states.
So we actually have some OCS folks on the call. I'm going to go ahead and unmute them so that they can answer. Hold on one second. Should be unmuted now.
Hi. Hello, everyone. It's Monique from the Office of Community Services. No, you will not need to certify the annual report as it's not required in the CSBG Act. That helps.
The authorized official.
But so the authorized official will still be able to hit the submit button.
This is Nikki. So for the certified section, there's no certified button for the CSBG annual report for Module 1. So most of you on the line are likely grant administrators that submitted the most state plan for fiscal year 16 and fiscal year 17. So you have the capabilities of actually submitting the report, and it doesn't have to go up through the authorized official to actually hit a button in order for you to submit. Is that
Thank you, Nikki.
no problem, Jean? Thank you.
And also talk about that more in the webinar coming up about submitting the OLDC.
Great. And then Karen Ray, so I'll go ahead and unmute you.
Hey, yeah, and this might be addressed in next week's webinar that's going to go a little bit more into Module 1. I'm trying to work out draft responses, but we're one of the special states that had a 2-year plan, and I'm hoping, I guess the answer is that you can give me is in the beta testing that's going on, that somebody is kind of testing state situation, because the requested amendments of what was done fiscal year 16. So if I put out what was in OLDC for fiscal year 16 versus our uploaded PDF document, because we did a 15-16 plan, out of the stuff that they say is going to be automatically imported wasn't filled in. So like wondering whether this is going to trigger errors because boxes, that type of thing. So I'm just hoping that that's getting beta tested.
Yes, we have been testing that just in terms of auto-population for any state, but especially I believe it was 12 states who had partial information updated into OLDC. I think it's currently under review to make sure that as much of the information is auto-populated as possible. Monique, did you want to speak that at all?
We are working on guidance on that. We've been doing a comparison, a crosswalk to see which questions were answered by the 12 states that were in their second year in the first submission of this, so we will have guidance about that.
Great.
It will not result in an error message.
Okay, that's what I was most worried about, is that it wasn't going to import and we get stuck.
Yeah.
It's a good question. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. To see many of you on the next webinar. That's next Thursday, the 23rd, where we'll really be deeper into Module 1. If you have questions in the meantime about Module 1, please feel free to reach out to myself, Jackie, or Katie. And then if you have questions about your IS submission, please reach out to your regional contact here at NASCSP. And you should be receiving an email, regional contact, next couple days, just to share some resources and make sure that you know who you can contact here at NASCSP. Karen, it says, you had a question about when the invite will be sent for next week's webinar. That will go out today with the registration link. So look for that in your email inboxes. Before we wrap up,
I don't think questions. Everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
Next webinar.